Have you ever gotten everything you wanted and still felt empty inside? That's not your fault. Your brain has been tricked not by your choices, not by circumstance, but by something far more insidious, the silent hijacking of your reward system. A chemical called dopamine, once your evolutionary compass for survival, connection, and effort, is now being exploited by algorithms, platforms, and neuromarketers that have figured out how to flood your mind without feeding your soul. And the worst part? They've made it feel normal. You're not addicted to your phone. You're addicted to the anticipation of meaning. You're not failing to focus because you're broken. Your biology is locked in a loop designed to exhaust you. The same chemical that rewards you for seeking love and purpose is now being triggered by flashing lights, synthetic approval, and endless content devoid of depth. But before we go any further, I need to ask you something, and you need to hear this plainly. What if I told you that every time you scroll away without fully understanding what dopamine is doing to your brain, you're giving up the blueprint for your happiness and trading it for short-term noise? Most people never realize the price they're paying. They chase motivation like it's lost, when in reality, it's been chemically hijacked. Did you know your brain now releases more dopamine while scrolling social media than it does during intimacy with a loved one? That means your neurochemistry is being rewired to prioritize digital stimulation over human connection. When was the last time you could sit still for more than 10 minutes without checking your notifications, refreshing a feed, or reaching for just one more hit of stimulation without even knowing why? If you click away now, you'll return to that endless loop, and the cost isn't just your attention. It's your peace, your clarity, your ability to know what will actually make you happy. But if you stay, if you choose to truly watch, then you'll understand that the reason you feel so drained, distracted, and numb isn't random. It's by design. Your freedom starts with seeing how deep the trap goes. Dopamine was never meant to be your enemy. It's the reason you act, hunt, try, build, love, and dream. It's what drives forward motion in your life. But what happens when your pursuit system, the very thing meant to direct you toward long-term goals, is activated 100 times a day by artificial triggers? The answer: your brain burns out. It isn't inspiration fatigue or laziness. It's reward system overload. Your dopamine has no idea what's real anymore. You were never meant to experience the thrill of achievement every 6 seconds, especially without actually achieving anything meaningful. The like button, the dopamine hit of slot machine notifications, the infinite scroll, these aren't accidents. They are engineered manipulations of your most primal circuitry. And so you feel drained before the day begins, bored in the middle of stimulation, exhausted by the things that are supposed to be fun, and unsure why you have no energy left for what actually matters. You see, dopamine doesn't spike when you are rewarded. It spikes when your brain anticipates a reward. That anticipation is what motivates you. The scroll isn't pleasurable. It might be. That possibility is what keeps your thumb moving. And here's the trap. The more frequently your brain anticipates artificial reward, the less joy you feel when an actual reward arrives. That's why achievements feel hollow. That's why relationships feel like work. That's why silence feels unnerving. Because your neurochemistry has been taught to expect magic instantaneously and constantly. At that pace, reality stands no chance. Carl Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Most people don't know that they are chemically enslaved. They think they've lost their drive, or that growing up just inevitably brings numbness. They call it burnout. But this isn't burnout, it's misfiring dopamine. And unlike fate, you can do something about that. But to fix it, you must become radically aware of what you consume, of when and why, of the patterns you've never questioned. Dopamine itself is not the villain. The villain is your unconscious relationship with it, and the constant access to artificially engineered highs that slowly shatter your emotional floor and raise your expectations to impossible heights. Let me put it to you simply. When you check your phone 100 times a day, you're not refreshing for productivity. You're looking for a nervous system hit, You're looking to escape. Escape silence. Escape uncertainty. Escape the uncomfortable but sacred act of being fully present. And the longer you run from presence, the dimmer your inner voice becomes. You disconnect from what Jung called the self, the totality of your being. In its place comes the persona, the mask we wear for public survival. Today, that persona lives in curated stories, optimized feeds, staged moments. But you're not your feed. You're the person who feels hollow when no one's watching. You're the person who sits with tears and silence wondering, when did life get so empty? That moment is your truth reclaiming itself. Alfred Adler believed that every human action is an attempt to overcome an internal sense of inferiority. In today's language, we're chasing dopamine highs to avoid low self-worth shaped by external metrics. Every like validates us. Every view tells us, you matter. But Adler also knew, chasing superiority only leads to deeper inferiority. So we keep running. We chase more followers, more visibility, more stimulation. And yet we feel smaller every time we catch a glimpse of who we've actually become. Numb, distracted, emotionally out of sync. We've abandoned the inner world for a pixel-based reality that mimics life but never feeds it. And let's be honest, you felt that drop. The come down after the binge, after the endless scroll, after the 3-hour YouTube spiral where you can't even remember what you were looking for. That's your nervous system telling you, there's nothing real here. But instead of resting, we distract again. And the cycle continues. You're not addicted to technology. You're addicted to dopamine loops that never resolve. Like a story with no ending. A song that builds but never peaks. How could your soul not feel starved? Abraham Maslow placed self-actualization at the top of the needs hierarchy. But actualization demands self-awareness, and that demands silence, reflection, and deep processing of life signals. How can you self-actualize when your attention span has been colonized by 15-second flashes of noise? How can you grow into your full self when your brain forgets what it's like to do one thing for an hour without checking your phone 5 times? You don't need willpower. You need room to breathe again. Ask yourself honestly, have you ever felt like you were drowning in stimulation, but dying of emotional thirst? You consume all day long. Entertainment, information, emotion, noise, and somehow by the end of the night you feel worse. That's not just depression. That's dopamine exhaustion. Your nervous system can't keep firing that often, that fast, and that artificially without breaking. You were raised in a nature that was slow, rhythmic, sensual. Now you're stuck in a machine trying to manufacture happiness. It won't work. You don't need a new app. You don't need to delete all your social media accounts. But you do need to wake up. You need to reclaim your compass, the inner orientation system that tells you, this is what I want. This is what nourishes me. This is what brings me peace. That compass has been spinning for years, knocked off course by artificial goals and meaningless validation. But it's still there. Beneath the chaos, it waits. Viktor Frankl survived the unimaginable, and yet he told us, life is not about pleasure. It's about meaning. It's about having a why. Dopamine cannot give you a why. It can only give you a what next. That's why chasing dopamine makes you feel like your life is progressing, even when it's standing still. 1,000 micro-choices that lead nowhere. 1,000 artificial rewards built on short-term thresholds, and a slow forgetting of long-term joy. But here's the good news. Your biology can be retrained. Your neurons still heal, and your attention can become your own again. The first step, observe. Watch your needs. Watch your cravings. Don't shame them. Study them. Sit in the discomfort of not checking your phone for 10 minutes. Feel what that silence reveals. Then stretch it. Daily, move your devices farther from you while you work. Eat your meals in silence. Let boredom return. Let your mind go for a walk again instead of racing inside a box of pixels. That boredom, that's not the enemy. That's where ideas are born. That's where clarity grows. That's where presence finally sees light again. Joy will not come like a clap of thunder. It returns slowly the way spring follows winter. You'll begin to taste food again. You'll find sunsets a little more vivid. You'll speak with someone and lose track of time, not because you were overstimulated, but because you were reconnected. To them, to yourself, to something internal that no algorithm knows how to reach. And that's where we're going. Because if this has stirred something in you, then what's coming next will take you deeper into the science, the soul, and the escape routes from a system designed to numb you. If your compass still feels broken, the next chapters will help you recalibrate it, not to their algorithm, but to your truth. Every generation faces a kind of silent crisis, a condition of the soul that modern language doesn't always have words for. Ours is disconnection, not from the world around us, but from the world within us. We wake up and perform rituals we don't believe in. We talk to people without really listening. We eat but forget to taste. We seek rest but never stop rushing. And we mistake awareness for activity. We scroll through life thinking we are witnessing reality when what we're actually seeing is a glittering digital clone, edited, optimized, and filtered until even our reflection looks like a stranger. At the core of all of this sits dopamine. Not evil, not broken, just confused, hijacked, misled, used against us in ways so subtle that we mistake them for freedom. The freedom to choose any content, at any time, on any device. But endless freedom without direction is not liberation, it's paralysis. And here's the great paradox we must confront. The more choices your brain has to crave, the less ability it has to crave the right things. Excess novelty dilutes meaning. Constant stimulation dissolves desire itself. And the terrifying part, most people think this is just normal life, but it's not life. It's a chemical loop dressed as progress. Carl Jung feared that the biggest threat to our sanity wasn't chaos or suffering, but artificiality. He believed the psyche was wired for wholeness, and its destruction came slowly, every time we lived out of alignment with our deeper self. That's exactly what dopamine manipulation does. It slowly separates you from your essence, from your true nature, the childlike wonder, the quiet bravery, the ability to feel joy without permissions, metrics, or approvals. It doesn't happen suddenly. You don't wake up one morning feeling lost. You lose yourself one scroll at a time, one hit at a time, until something inside quietly wonders, is this all there is? But here's the beauty. The map to return was never lost, just ignored. Maybe no one told you this, but your yearning is sacred. The ache you feel when you can't sit still in silence, that's not weakness. That's your heart trying to break through the noise. The loneliness you feel while surrounded by people glued to their screens, that isn't exaggeration. It's a signal. The exhaustion you feel after 3 hours of binge scrolling isn't just eye strain, it's soul strain. These whispers, these aches, are your psyche trying to remind you, you were made for more than this. Not more productivity, not more aesthetic feeds, but more reality, more soul, more presence. We live under the crushing illusion that every moment must be optimized, every task monetized, every free second filled. But that belief is not you. It's a script you inherited from a world that profits off of your restlessness. The lie was hidden in the question, how can I make every moment productive? But the truth whispers a different question. How can I return to the kind of moment that makes life feel sacred again? Maslow understood this. At the top of his pyramid wasn't wealth or status. It was self-actualization, the full expression of who you are beneath all roles, all masks, all conditioning. But here's something most people get wrong. Actualization isn't achieved through climbing. It's uncovered by unpeeling, by stripping away all that dampens your spark. You don't become your higher self by reaching a higher income bracket. You become your higher self by creating enough stillness to hear the voice that's been buried under scrolls and noise all along. And it begins, not with grand resolution, but with simple, consistent retrieval. The act of remembering, of reclaiming, of re-romanticizing small acts your soul once loved. A walk without a podcast, a dinner without distraction, a breath without urgency, a moment that doesn't need to be televised to be real. When was the last time you walked into a room without checking if there was Wi-Fi? When was the last time you read something without feeling the need to share it? When was the last time something was experienced only by you, not recorded? And when you start to ask these questions, you'll feel grief. Grief for years spent chasing things that kept moving, for moments lost in the name of what-ifs. But that grief is beautiful, because grief is love's evidence. You cannot mourn the shallow if you've never tasted the deep, and the deep is waiting, always. Now let's return to dopamine. You've learned how it pushes you toward potential rewards, that it gets released before the celebration, not after. That it motivates your behavior in anticipation, not satisfaction. But what makes that so dangerous in today's world is that most dopamine triggers are designed to keep you anticipating forever. They reward the chase, not the arrival. That's why it feels so empty. Because you're not living for most of the day, most of the week, you are seeking. And seeking without end is the very definition of suffering. Viktor Frankl wrote, "When a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure, and that is the loop, the cycle. That's the dopamine trap. You didn't fall into it overnight, and you won't free yourself overnight either. But freedom isn't found in avoidance. It's found in awareness, in ritual, in the small radical acts of remembering." So what does freedom actually look like? Let me share what it's not. Freedom is not having the willpower to resist dopamine triggers. That's a losing battle. Freedom is building a life that no longer depends on them. That means returning your attention to things that are inherently meaningful, ones that can hold your weight emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. Playing music, writing without posting, creating without comparing, reconnecting with your body, movement that isn't tracked, conversations without a need to quote them later, and above all, allowing yourself to slow the hell down. This isn't productivity advice. This is restoration. Your nervous system, your bloodstream, your breath patterns. Every fiber of your being is trying to remember what it felt like to live when time wasn't measured in content windows, when attention wasn't monetized, when beauty was stumbled into, not staged, when love bloomed over months, not swipes. Those things still exist, but they are quiet, which means you must become quieter to hear them again. You may wonder, but what will I miss if I log out more, observe more, say yes to less? And the answer is, everything that never mattered. You will not miss the 10th video. You will not miss the forced smile for your story. What you will gain is terrifying because it's so unfamiliar. Uninterrupted awareness, emptiness at first, then clarity, then depth, then your original joy, uncultivated joy, non-addictive joy, the kind that cannot be bought, only made. That's what awaits you on the other side. And it's from this place that rebuilding begins, not just your routines, but your identity. Because when you reduce your dependency on dopamine inflation, your sense of self can breathe. Your compass, once spun in 1,000 random directions, begins pointing toward wholeness again. You begin choosing activities not because they're stimulating, but because they're meaningful. You start talking to people not because they're impressive, but because they're real. You start showing up not to be watched, but to be whole. And you start recognizing that joy isn't the firework, it's the ember. So now I ask you gently, fiercely, lovingly, can you be brave enough to be bored again? Can you be bold enough to walk through the silence instead of escaping it? Because on the other side of withdrawal lives wonder. What we call dopamine detoxing isn't a gimmick. It's a return to rhythm, to rituals, to remembering. You were not made to be alert every moment. You were made to feel deeply, not just react quickly. And if you're still here, if you're still listening, you've already begun the healing. Because the trap only works when you forget that you are more than chemicals, more than coding, more than consumption. You are awareness becoming awake again, and you are not alone. This moment, the courage to take your hand off the lever, to stop reaching for stimulation, this is the rebellion, and you just showed up for roll call. So here is where we land, the invitation. When you choose to reduce your dopamine exposure in small daily ways, leaving your phone in another room, taking screen-free walks, eating mindfully, speaking without distraction, you're not just calming your mind, you're repairing trust with yourself. You're telling your nervous system you no longer need to be hijacked to feel alive. You're training your brain to recognize real reward again, connection, gratitude, focus, softness. And you begin creating space for a quieter, deeper kind of happiness. Not the consuming kind, the becoming kind. Because what you seek is not in the next scroll. It's not in the next hit. It's waiting in the home you've been carrying all along, your presence. Let this stick. Let this land. Let today be the day you stop consuming your life and start profoundly inhabiting it. And if you've made it this far, I want to know who truly understood the message. Leave the phrase, "I choose presence over pursuit" in the comments, and let's see how many of you really grasp what it means to step off the dopamine treadmill and walk towards something real. If this video made you pause, feel, tear up, or see things from a different angle, like and subscribe. This is just the beginning. We're not building an audience. We're building a quiet revolution. I'll see you in the next one. And remember, a distracted mind chases, a present mind chooses. Choose wisely.